Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Today we're going to talk about the famous Wilson-Davis notes. It's something I really haven't talked about on my channel since I started it. But I'm going to talk about it today, and I'm going to give you my opinion as to why these notes are actually real. Anyway, we're going to start off here with a little quick summary from UFO Joe. His website here, UFO Joe, is a very good website that has a lot of good articles about UFOs. I highly recommend it. I will leave the link for it, as well as links for every other source that I borrow from here to lay this whole story out. Anyway, here's from UFO Joe's article here. If you're unfamiliar with the Wilson-Davis documents, start here. Basically, in 1997, Admiral Thomas Wilson learned of a hidden UFO program when he was briefed on the subject by Stephen Greer, Ph.D., Commander Will Miller, and Edgar Mitchell, Ph.D., the sixth man to walk on the moon. Now, let's just stop there for a second. So basically, he was Admiral in the Navy, of course, as you could imagine, and Will Miller, commander of Naval Reserve. Anyway, and of course, everyone knows the late Edgar Mitchell. He talked a lot about UFOs toward the end, and he knew there was a government cover-up that's been ongoing for many decades, and he favored, most certainly, disclosure. Anyway, continuing, it says, after he met with these gentlemen, according to UFO Joe, Wilson went looking for the program, found it, was told he didn't have a need to know, and was denied access. In 2002, he met with Dr. Eric Davis, Ph.D., in a car in Las Vegas and explained what had happened. Dr. Davis produced an extensive set of notes on what was said, and the debate of their authenticity has raged for the past year or so. Now, this article was written in June of 2020, so it's a couple years old now. And here's another article from a blog called Devoid. It's a blog that was with the HeraldTribune.com by Billy Cox. And the article headline reads, Eric who? And this is what the Admiral Wilson said. Okay, the Admiral of the Center of Controversial Notes describing his inability to access a classified UFO research program says the documents are bogus. Furthermore, he says the alleged author of those notes, physicist Dr. Eric Davis, never interviewed him. It's all fiction, says former Defense Intelligence Agency Director Thomas Wilson from his home in Virginia. I wouldn't know Eric Davis if he walked in right now. Posted on Imgur last year, the 15 pages of typed notes, often referred to now as the Core Secrets Memo, were presented as the rough transcripts of a conversation between Wilson shortly after retiring from the Navy and Davis on 10/16/02. The nut graph of Core Secrets, if true, would confirm some of the darkest suspicions about the UFO phenomenon, that research is being undertaken and walled off by private contractors to the extent that not even insiders at the most elite levels of military intelligence have the proper security clearances to review the evidence. Davis, who famously researches the sorts of exotic technology often observed in UFO behaviors, has never affirmed or denied his ostensible authorship of Core Secrets when pressed over the past year. He did, however, tell the New York Post in May that the documents were leaked by the estate of the late astronaut and Apollo 14 moonwalker, Dr. Edgar Mitchell. Well, let's just stop right there for a second. Basically, it was Edgar Mitchell, Greer, and this Naval Reserve commander, Will Miller, who basically talked to Wilson back in the 90s about that there had to be secret program with regard to reverse engineering UFOs, and he looked into it according to Davis's notes. But anyway, let's continue. But in his first public statement on Core Secrets, Wilson rejected the entire premise of the meeting and his role in it. The notes indicate that Wilson and Davis rendezvoused in Las Vegas inside a car attended by 3 uniformed military personnel in the parking lot of the Special Projects building of defense contractor EG&G. I'm not saying that sometime, somewhere, I never met Davis, but I certainly don't know him. I don't remember him, and I definitely did not sit with him in a car for an hour in Las Vegas, Wilson told Devoid. You may also see in those notes where I came with 2 other naval officers, a lieutenant and a lieutenant commander, and a petty officer who was driving the car. I was not even in the Navy then, and the Navy was certainly not ferrying me around in a car at that point. These notes are really detailed. It's like somebody wrote a fiction piece, Wilson said. But it never happened, trust me. There are so many things in those notes that are demonstrably inaccurate, and I don't know how I could prove it, but I haven't been to Las Vegas since 1979-80. Wilson said he hadn't gotten around to reading the Core Secrets docs until someone brought them to his attention within the past week or so. He said his catch-up crash course included watching researcher Richard Dolan's YouTube overview of the contents and their implications. Wilson called that synopsis silly. One thing in the notes that is true, Wilson added, is that he and Mitchell did meet face-to-face. Wilson said he couldn't remember the date, but Core Secrets alleges the meeting occurred in 1997 when Wilson was Vice Director of Intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, shortly before becoming the DIA Director. That's the Defense Intelligence Agency. He acknowledged that the subject of UFOs and special access programs did come up, but he reiterated what he told Devoid in 2008, that he wasn't interested in going down that rabbit hole. I don't remember the details, but Mitchell was accompanied by UFO researcher Stephen Greer, said that there would be evidence in black programs, and I would be interested in chasing it down, Wilson said. I told him I had far too many things to do. I'm not saying there are no such programs because I don't know. I didn't check or follow up. It might not have been a waste of time for somebody to pursue, but I did not have time to waste, believe me. At that time, I was up to my eyeballs in Bosnia and Kosovo and Korea and Iraq and you name it, terrorism. So I didn't feel I should spend my time. Well, I had enough black programs I had to deal with. In 1996, Mitchell told me that he was pursuing leads that UFO information is now held primarily by a body of semi- or quasi-private organizations that have kind of spun off the military intelligence organizations of the past. He recalled those arrangements dangerous and added, and actually just sort of stop there. This is what he told the Devoid writer back in 1996. He called those arrangements dangerous and added, and imagine an organization that has a black budget, an unquestioned source of funds, reports to no one, and has this exotic technology that they can keep to themselves and play with. He also said that if NASA had prior knowledge of, quote, ET contact existing within the government, and we were sent into space blind and dumb to such information, I think it is a case of criminal culpability. Mitchell repeated some of those allegations in 2008 on CNN's Larry King Live. Without mentioning Wilson, Mitchell said he had talked with an admiral who had found the people responsible for the cover-up and for the people who were in the know and were told, I'm sorry, Admiral, you do not have need to know here, and so goodbye. Upon learning 12 years ago that Wilson had immediately rejected those allegations, Mitchell said he was shocked, but he refused to challenge the discrepancy. I do not wish to engage him on this matter, Mitchell said. So basically, I'm just going to stop there for a second. So 12 years ago, when Mitchell made that allegation that he talked to an admiral, and that the admiral told him that he tried to look into it and didn't have a need to know. Apparently, Wilson's name popped up and he was questioned about it. And 12 years ago, in 2008, it would have been 12 years from 2020, Mitchell said he was shocked, but he didn't want to challenge it, right? And he actually said, I do not wish to engage him on this matter. So basically, Mitchell just backed off, decided not to comment on what he thought. So apparently, Wilson not only told Davis about this in 2002, but at some point after in 1997, when he did look into these things there was several months in 1997 when he tried to get to the bottom of this. According to Davis's notes, Wilson tried to get to the bottom of these secret programs. At some point after that, he obviously told Mitchell about it, and then Mitchell brought it up during Larry King Live in 2008, and when the Admiral Wilson was later approached, say, hey, did Mitchell, mean you? Was that, and he said, no, that's not me. And then Mitchell said, well, I don't want to engage him on that. And anyway, continuing with this article, Wilson's repudiation of the core secrets narrative is consistent with what a handful of his contemporaries, either mentioned in the core secrets notes or involved in the relevant chain of command in 1997, have told Devoid. Former Los Alamos National Laboratory scientist Oki Shannon, former Principal Deputy Under Secretary of Defense for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics Noel Longomere, former Vice Chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and United States Air Force General Joel Ralston, and former Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics Dr. Paul Kaminsky have all stated they have no knowledge of the core secrets version of events. As to the broader subject of UFOs, Wilson remained skeptical. Over the course of his long military career, Wilson said he knew of countless initial unusual sightings that turned out to have prosaic explanations, many of them submarines. But the Pentagon's recent verification of videos showing F-18s in pursuit of UFOs have lowered his guard somewhat. I looked at those Navy videos with some interest, he said. I don't know what they saw. It's interesting for sure. Eric Davis could not be reached for comment. Now, before we get into the Eric Davis notes, I just want to point out that, of course, Eric Davis has not really ever said anything about these notes either. He won't deny them. He just won't say anything. So you have basically this retired Admiral Wilson who says, this is all bogus. These notes are bogus. You had Edgar Mitchell back in 2008 surprised that the Admiral completely denied it, this stuff, and then basically he wouldn't comment, and then these notes, apparently after Mitchell dies, they get leaked by Mitchell's estate. I'm assuming that somehow Mitchell had it arranged so these notes would get leaked. And apparently Eric Davis probably felt comfortable at one point giving them to Mitchell because he probably thought, well, I don't think, he already knows about this. I know about it. And, they didn't have any plans on releasing it to the public. He probably didn't think that Mitchell would do something like that because, Mitchell did know about it himself. And then they get leaked. And Davis doesn't say anything about it. I mean, let's put it this way. Where I'm going with this, I think that these notes were real. I think that Wilson is, not being truthful here, and it's not. I think he really has no choice. I mean, he actually says in the notes at one point that if this ever comes out, I'll completely deny it. Now, of course, a lot of people out there could say, well, if you're going to fake notes like that, you could say something like that because he's going to deny it, and then this way it makes it look more. No. I don't. We're going to get into all the reasons why I think these notes are real. But first, we're going to go through the notes. Okay, the notes. I'm going to start here on page 6 of these notes. I'm just not going to read the whole thing, of course, but I'm going to go through some of the salient points. So basically, Wilson apparently met Davis in Las Vegas in 2002. Davis kept notes, and at some point after this meeting, Davis must have given a copy to Edgar Mitchell, and Mitchell held on to them, and then after his death, had them leaked. That's what it appears happened here. But anyhow, one of the things, was discussed here, early on page 6 here was, Wilson, there was a lot of different people vouched for him, a lot of people vouched to Wilson on Davis's behalf, saying this guy's very trustworthy and everything like that. And so, but he told Davis this, according to the notes, this is what, Wilson said with regard to Davis. Background check clear, no derogatory items found. Korean record good, and Air Force trust you. I'm running out of time, so let's go with this. If you blow my trust, I'll deny meeting you, deny everything said. Won't meet with any more people without clearances to talk about this topic. Too risky because of security violation just by mentioning it. Very tightly held info. Absurdly closely held subject matter. Never seen anything like this program in black programs community. Okay, then Eric Davis asked him, okay, what happened in April through June 1997? Some of the things he found out, he made some calls to he actually tracked down some program manager, and he was trying to get information about this program, and the people were very testy. There was a testy tone from all of them, from these people that he had contacted. He says here in the note, according to the notes, Wilson said, told Davis, made 3 calls to the program director, one of them conference call with security director and corporate attorney. Confusion on their part as to why I was looking for them and what I wanted from them or wanted to know about. Very testy tone from all of them. And Davis asked, what do you mean? And Wilson said, well, they were agitated about my calling, surprised by the call. And then Davis says, what you asked them? And Wilson said, yes. And then Davis asked, well, what was it? What words? And then Wilson's there. I read their program report in OUSTAT, Special Program Records Group, and wanted to know about their crashed UFO program, what their role in it was, what they had, etc. Also asked if they heard of MJ-12 or some such organization code relating to crashed/recovered UFO craft. And he said, I told the threesome I wanted formal briefing, a tour, etc., was exploiting my regulatory authority as Deputy Director of DIA, Assistant Joint Chief of Staff. Told them my not being briefed about this was an oversight that they needed to correct. He demanded to know more about this program. They needed to discuss this. He got a call 2 days later, and they said they don't want to talk on phone and arrange for a face-to-face meeting at their facility. And then 10 days later, he flew out there. He met in a conference room in their secure vault. 3 people showed up. It was a security director who was retired from the NSA, a program director, a corporate attorney. They called themselves the Watch Committee or Gatekeepers. And Davis asked why that phrase or name, and Wilson said, I asked. They said they were formed out of necessity to protect themselves after a near disaster in the past almost blew their cover, something to do with an agreement that was reached with a couple of Pentagon SESs overseeing SAPs in those days. We're vague about when that was. What was this? Davis asked. Well, let me finish. They said years ago in past, an audit and investigation led to them, and it wasn't supposed to. Nearly outed. A battle, a nasty back and forth between them and the investigator and his Pentagon chief ensued, like a tug of war for program transparency. They told me money was the issue. Their hiding out became the other issue. Some kind of threat was leveled to blow the lid off them, so they backed down and let the investigator in to complete his job. They worked very hard to keep the program hidden. And then Davis asked, well, what happened with that? And Wilson's there. He was officially briefed, given tour, and shown their program. And then Davis asked, did they show him a craft or hardware they said was alien or from a UFO? And Wilson said, didn't say more about it. Said after the episode, a formal agreement was struck with Pentagon people to prevent this in the future. Didn't want to repeat. Special criteria were established in the agreement. A special circumstance that must meet rigorous access criteria set by contractor committee. No USG personnel are to gain access unless they meet the criteria, to be administered by contractor committee, program director, attorney, security director, irregardless of the tickets and position USG personnel possessed. Literally their way or the highway. So basically they were telling him that he can't, they're not going to let him see this stuff. And Davis asked Wilson, well, what are the criteria? And Wilson's like, well, I asked for that, and they refused to give an answer. I was mad. Implication is now, to me, they operate without official oversight or any justification. Politically dangerous place to be. Now, you have to remember, these are just, notes, so some words aren't all. That's why it sounds, just like things are cut out of it, So Wilson, basically, Davis was taking some quick notes, and I guess he must have typed them out at some point. But anyway, continuing. And then he said that this threesome that he had talked to they wanted a counting of their conversations, concerned about new exposure. Purpose of meeting was to tell me this. What? Asked Davis, and Wilson's there. That they weren't going to let me in the door. And Davis asked why. And then Wilson's there. Well, they said my tickets were all confirmed and valid, but I was not on the bigot list. My tickets alone were not enough. I didn't meet the special criteria, so need to know authorization was not being granted. Went back and forth with them over these points, primarily with security director and attorney. I argued more. They wouldn't accept my arguments that they fell under my statutory oversight and regulatory authority as Deputy Director of DIA under purview of my right to have a need to know, oversight, audit, justification issues, etc., etc. Regulatory and statutory authority as Deputy Director DIA not relevant or pertinent to nature of their program. Then they pulled out their bigot list to convince me otherwise, several pages long, dated 1990, updated 1993. And Davis asked whose names were on it, and Wilson said, "Well, that's a core secret. That's there were some things that Davis asked who was on it. Do you recognize any names?" And Wilson said, "That's a core secret. That's why, they call this Wilson wouldn't give Davis everything." But he did say he was willing to say that most were program employees, names and titles, job titles, civilians. Didn't recognize any military personnel, but that they could be there. And he asked, Davis asked if there were any politicians on there, and Wilson said no. No White House names, no president, no congressional people, and no congressional staffers. And Davis asked, any in the Clinton or Bush senior administrations? And Wilson said no, but a handful of names were Pentagon individuals I recognized, few from Austat, one from another department, another at the NSC who was the Pentagon SES employee. I just want to say Austat is the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics. Program managers said they were not any weapons program, not any intelligence program, not any special ops or logistic program, and doesn't fit these categories. I asked what they were then. And then there was a loud groan from the program manager, and the security director said it's okay to say it. And Davis said, "Hey, say what?" And Wilson said, "Well, they said there was a reverse engineering program, something recovered years ago in the past. Technological hardware was recovered. So I thought they meant recovered Soviet, Chinese, etc. hardware and reverse engineered, like a missile or intel platform or aircraft. Actually came to meeting expecting to find a sensitive foreign collection and reverse engineering operation. Thought UFO was used as a cover for that. So I said that, and they said they weren't that either. They had program manager talking, a craft, an intact craft they believe could fly. Space, air, water dimensions. Was it from overseas or not? Said no. Could not be. Not possible. Why, I asked. Where did it come from? Program managers said they didn't know where it was from. They had some ideas on this. It was technology that was not of this earth, not made by man, not by human hands. Said they were trying to understand and exploit the technology. Their program was going on for years and years with very slow progress. Agonizingly slow with little or no success. Painful lack of collaboration to get help from outside community of experts and facilities to assist effort, must remain isolated and must use own facilities and cleared personnel, tough environment to work, about 400 to 800 on the bigot list count, workers varying in number with funding or personnel changes. Miller questions asked. Roswell, craft bodies, autopsies, Holloman Air Force Base landing, MJ-12 and leaked documents, Zamora and Bentwaters, etc. They were mum, declined to discuss these, so they wouldn't answer any other questions. Wilson then threatened to go to SAPOC, which is a Special Access Programs Oversight Committee, and they said, "Go ahead and do what you must." I was angry because they defied my authority to be read in with good logical reason. They wouldn't budge. Their tone was very terse throughout the conversation. And then Davis asked Wilson, "What was the outcome?" He said, "Well, the meeting broke up and he returned to Washington." And later on, Davis asked, "Did you complain to SAPOC?" And he said, "Yes. I called the subgroup members, the senior review group members, to a meeting at the Pentagon, told them what happened at the meeting. They responded that they would sustain the contractor on their access denial. So I ended up arguing with them for a while, broke up in 20 minutes, and they would meet me in 2 to 3 days. Got the call 2 days later, near the end of June, and met again with the senior review group members. And then they told him then that they were sustaining the contractor, which was the people that were basically reverse engineering this recovered UFO technology, and that wouldn't show one of the Admiral of the Navy at the time. They told me they were sustaining the contract, that I was to immediately drop the matter and let it go. Forget about it, as I did not have purview over their project. It didn't fall within my oversight, etc. I became very angry, started yelling when should have kept my mouth shut. And then I'm not reading this whole thing. I mean, if you want to read this whole thing, I mean, of course, I'm going to leave the links for everything here. But I'm just reading some of the other points. Now, there was somebody that he talked to, a Gansler, who was with a Jacques Gansler, who was with the Office of Secretary of Defense for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics, who indicated at one point to him that the UFOs were real and alien abductions were not real. I'm going to have to, I'm not going to read, and that's about all. There's no real point in going through the rest of this. I think the main points were touched on, but I want to start with what the notes say about alien abductions not being real. I think that was disinformation that was deliberately given to Wilson. I think that was. I don't. For one thing, either they have no idea because it's really going on. Either they're completely oblivious to it, right, to the reality that there are alien abductions that have happened, right. Either our government is completely oblivious to this, right, or they lied to him on that point. Because they are real. There's no question. I was in the presence of one of these beings, and I've talked about this on numerous occasions in different podcasts. So I know that those people aren't lying who say they were abducted by aliens, because they're real. There's no question about it. Anyway, now I just want to get into some of this here. Now, some people, there's a lot of people since these documents came out, were leaked in 2019 now, that say there's not enough proof. That Wilson denies it completely. Davis won't talk about it. But the thing is that let's go through it. Why would they not? Why would they not be? How could they not be real? Why would somebody make these up? Why, put it this way, if they were fake, right? Like Wilson says, why wouldn't Davis just come forward and say, yeah, this is obviously a fabrication. They're totally faked. Why wouldn't he just say that? It would make it so simple. I'll tell you why. Because the notes were real. He actually did meet with him, right? And this really happened. And Wilson actually did look into this and basically had the door shut in his face by these contractors, by these basically private people. Basically, it just goes to show you that there was some kind of program initiated at some point in the past, right? Probably, it started under Truman. Probably Eisenhower, did something, made it official, right? He knew about it, and then it was taken away from the Pentagon. They're not some people. There are some people that are probably they're in the know, right? But not people like Admiral Wilson. This is that it has to be this way. To maintain this secret, you got to really keep the lid on this thing. And meanwhile, they're trying to reverse engineer this stuff, and obviously, according to these notes, they were having a lot of problems with that. Very slow moving, and you would think it would be, considering that it's probably 100,000 years at least. Who knows? A million years, could be. Who knows how many years more advanced for beings to come from other planets all the way to here, Earth? It has to be beyond. Anyway, and now there's a lot of debunkers out there who will say stuff like, we don't have any, they can't be real. Because it's just Wilson denies it, and Davis won't talk about it. He won't comment on it. But and actually, John Greenwald talked about this, and I'm going to leave a link for there was a video that he did last year actually, where he talked about it, and he said things like it could be notes for a screenplay, for a movie script. That's absolutely absurd, preposterous. Now, of course, I have a lot of respect for John Greenwald. I think he does a great job with the FOIA requests, and he's a bulldog. He's the best out there we got. For him to believe in this, he needs an actual government document signed and from the Pentagon telling him that this is it's real, apparently, because that's all he'll accept. And that's why he fights so hard for these Freedom of Information Act requests. This isn't what isn't enough for him. But again, it is enough for me, because when you unpack everything, when you look at the history of this whole thing, we know for a fact, right? If you study this, right, you know for a fact, you already know that there's a cover-up been ongoing for 75 years. And obviously there's a reverse engineering program going on. And obviously, if someone like Wilson gets confronted by the, he's not supposed to be talking about this in public. So of course he's going to deny it. Of course he is, right? Of course he's going to deny it. Why would you make up these notes, right? They're not notes for a screenplay. I was a reporter for 14 years, and I can tell you right now, this is what reporter notes could look like. It's incomplete in a lot of places. You gotta, it's tight writing, But again, to me, these notes are real. I think that there's no question about it. I don't think it's a hoax. I think if they were made up, I don't. Why would Eric Davis just sit back and not comment on it? Why did Edgar Mitchell, say, well, he's not going to comment on it, back in the day? Why did he just, he apparently he was told these things, but I guess the problem is that Wilson didn't want this to get out in the public. He can't. It's impossible. He'd probably be arrested if he talked about it. You can't. He can't talk about. Nobody was supposed to talk about this. The Pentagon has a policy. This can't get out into the public. It just can't. He can't admit to this. How could he? Well, he trusted Davis on this, and apparently Davis has kept his side of the bargain. He's never commented on it. He's never said outright, Wilson did talk to me, but he did share these notes, obviously, with Mitchell, right? He gave Mitchell these notes. I guess he thought Mitchell would never release them, or maybe he did think he would. Who knows? Who knows what the truth is behind all of that? But these notes aren't made up. This is what happened. So to say that they're phony or script for a screenplay, that's ridiculous. There's no proof for that. I mean, it'd be a lousy screenplay. It'd be boring as all hell. I mean, you try to read through some of this. It's a bunch of names and no, it's not a screenplay. This is real. This is what a conversation about something like this. This is what it would sound like if you were having a conversation with somebody about this, right? Once you accept the fact that this is real, that there is a reverse engineering program ongoing, there has to be. There has to be. Once you understand that, once you accept the reality that there are extraterrestrials coming here and that there's a government cover-up, right? Once you know that, then this stuff is, I would say this is more realistic than not. This is what a conversation like would sound like, right? When you're talking about things like that, because that's what's going on. But yeah, I think that the Wilson Davis notes are completely legitimate, and unfortunately for Wilson, this was something that he did not want to get out to the public. And so he has to say that it's totally made up. What else is he gonna do? That's why he's so defiant. He was so defiant after this information was leaked. What else could he do? He can't say anything else. And I know some people out there want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Well, I don't see how anybody could trust anybody from the Pentagon when it comes to UFOs talking about it. They've been telling lies for years. I mean, you have people on record on news interviews from the 60s saying, "Oh, there's nothing to hide here. We have, if we knew anything, we'd tell you." They're lying. They've always been lying. So what makes you think they're going to tell the truth here? They can't. They can't. That would be telling. That would be giving the secret away. The secret is that there's an extraterrestrial presence here. They can't tell you that. They're giving us some stuff. They're piecemealing it, right? Since 2017, they're piecemealing us some stuff. They're trying to, somebody's doing the right thing there. Somebody's made the right decision to get some stuff out there. Of course, those 3 videos that came out in 2017 were leaked, right? And now the Navy, right? Just recently, the Navy just told Greenwald, no, we're not going to release it. It's national security, you know. And then the other issue here, some of the debunkers out there will say, well, Edgar Mitchell, he was getting older at the end there. He didn't know what you know what I mean? He's getting older. It's harder to think, when he was later in his life when, he was talking about these things, about the government and the UFO cover-up. So people were trying to use his age against him. Like that was, that's what they do. They do that with a lot of different people. I mean, the Walter Haut, who wrote the press release in 1947, who was ordered to write the press release in 1947 that the Air Force had captured, the United States Army Air Force had captured a flying saucer in the desert outside of Roswell. He was ordered to write that, and he talked. And then after Marcel, over the years, after Jesse Marcel in the late 70s finally went public with the truth about Roswell, Haut was one of the people that did start talking about it, but there were some things that he held back, right? He held some things back, and about 3 years before he died, he signed an affidavit that was sealed, that wasn't going to be open until he was dead. That explained everything else that he saw that he never talked about during his life because he had promised people, the Air Force and his former Colonel William Blanchard, that he would never say anything publicly. So while he was alive, that's why he did this, right? And one of the things that was in that sealed affidavit after he died, a few years after writing it, was that he actually saw alien bodies, right? So what do the debunkers and stuff? So debunkers say then after the Haut's sealed affidavit comes out, well, yeah. He was getting old and, couldn't think straight anymore. You know what I mean? See, that's what they do. They're just the best they can do. I mean, all they could do is lie, put the seed of doubt in people's mind. But guess what? There's no doubt in my mind. I think Admiral Wilson, retired, is lying. I think he did tell Davis exactly what's in these notes. I think he did try to get to the bottom of this. Right? I think everybody else is, they're not thinking straight about this. So this is, as far as I'm concerned, the Wilson Davis document, the notes, they're completely real to me. And Wilson he's not allowed. He can't tell the truth about what's going on. that would be disclosure. So what do you expect him to do? If he was to come out and say this, right? That would be him disclosing. He doesn't have the authority to do that. So all he can do is lie about it. He's probably in trouble behind the scenes. He probably did get in trouble about this behind the scenes. I'm sure of it. He could say it's fiction all day long, but I'm going to say what he's saying is fiction. It's real. There's definitely a cover-up, and there's definitely no question about it. There's most certainly a reverse engineering program going on behind the scenes. And of course, there will be private contractors involved. But, who knows what kind of rules they set up. I mean, this guy walked into a brick wall. He could not get through. He could not get through. An admiral in the Navy could not, someone in the top upper echelon of the Pentagon wanted to get to the bottom of this. Couldn't do it. That's how tight security is around this subject. It's above top secret. It's always been that way.